Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Pastor James, and this morning I have a message for all of you lovebirds out there and wannabe lovebirds. But if you're going to be able to understand it, first I've got to take you back to the 80s. It's called Wicked Games.
It's strange what desire will make foolish people do. I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you. I never dreamed that I'd lose somebody like you. No, I don't want to fall in love. What a wicked game to play to make me feel this way. What a wicked thing to do to let me dream of you. What a wicked thing to say. You never felt this way. What a wicked thing to do, to make me dream of you. And I don't wanna fall in love. This world is only gonna break your heart. No, I don't wanna fall in love with you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Listen, if you weren't around to listen to the radio in the 80s, I'll just sum it up for you. Everybody, all the time, was thinking about their dream person, right? You know, some of you weren't around. So, listen, it was either, you're my dream person, or you were my dream person, or I thought you were my dream person until I met this other person, and now I'm really confused. You used to be my dream person, you should be my dream person, but you're not cooperating. It was, I'm telling you, you'd be in the grocery store, you'd be picking, Cheerios, Lucky Charms. I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. You're like, Lucky Charms, you just, it's so, it's like a Foreigner soundtrack on a loop all the time, everywhere you went. You go to the mall, you go to the grocery store, you go to the pharmacy, it's just, somebody is extremely, awkwardly emotional. It's just so intense all the time. Because you're a dream person. You come into adulthood and you have all of these dreams that you want to fulfill. You just have this big void in your heart, right? And the solution, if you listen to 80s music, is just to find the right someone. Your dream person is going to be the fulfillment of the vision for your life. It's when you find that person, it's all just going to come together so perfectly. And until that happens, you're just not going to be able to carry on with life proper. Right? If you were around, you know. Man, it was intense. Especially when VH1 came out. Man, all that emotional intensity, you couldn't watch it. It's a good thing the 80s didn't last any longer than they did. They only lasted 10 years. Why? It wasn't math. It's because we couldn't take it anymore. See, it turns out that when you look to a person to become the fulfillment or the fulfiller of your dreams for your life, there's trouble with that. There's a lot of drama. Too much drama. It's really intense. There are a lot of issues making someone responsible for fulfilling your dreams. It doesn't come without its challenges. And you go into some kind of a relationship, okay, maybe it's not permanent yet, maybe there isn't a permanent commitment, but you go into a relationship of some kind, and, you have all of these visions for your life. Some of them you're aware of, some of them you're not. I mean, anybody that has gotten married has quickly figured out that you actually had expectations you weren't even conscious of. You just had them kind of running quietly in the background. You just assumed certain things. Well, if I get married, it'll, more or less look like this or be this way, or I can expect a certain amount of time together and the time will look like this, and you have all these beautiful dreams about your lifestyle, about your income level, about the way you're going to raise kids, if you're going to have kids or if you're not going to have kids, what kind of a career will you be, where will you be, how will it be with your family? And that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning of all of your dreams. You've got so many dreams, and many of them are great dreams. But when people come into a relationship carrying all of those dreams, and they look to this person and they say, oh, this person is going to fulfill them. It's going to cap it off. They're going to be the icing on the cake, and the cake cannot be complete until them. There's trouble. There's trouble. They say there's trouble, there's trouble. Then, of course, what you do is, you're realistic. You know that they're not going to perfectly fit all of those things, right? And you know that. You should. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to work. That's what you're going to do. And you would never admit that you're going to change them. Okay, no, that's not what we're talking about. You would never want to change that person that you love so much. No. You're going to mold them. You're going to give them a little guidance. You're going to help them to shape up a little bit. Just help them shaping. We're talking about shaping. You're going to help them shape up. You're going to help them fit your dream box. Preach it. But you love this person, so you go to work. You go to work. And you try your best. And at first, they kind of comply a little bit. They don't want to upset the apple cart, hopefully. Or maybe you're just like, "Caw, caw, caw, caw," like this, two pterodactyls fighting. "Ah." Okay, maybe it's like that. But you go to work, and one way or another, and you start trying to each figure out how you're going to get to the place where your dreams will fulfilled so that what? You can be happy. I mean, until you get those dreams fulfilled, you're not going to be happy. Can't do that, right? So you've got this wonderful, excellent, beautiful person. You're so lucky to have them, but you kind of need them to perform certain things in certain ways at certain times, or otherwise, they're a barrier to your happiness. And the fight begins. Well, it might not be a fight. Here are a couple of things that happen most of the time. There's usually fighting. Everybody fights. Every relationship has a fight. We're not, discounting that. But at some point or another, if people hang on long enough, they get to a place where they decide to, compromise. Right? Isn't that what you hear at marriage seminars? You got to learn to compromise. Compromise. Here's what a compromise is. A compromise is where you decide that some of your dreams are really not quite as important as they might be, and so you're willing to just kind of let some of them go here and there. Just kind of dribble them off to the right, to the left. I don't need quite as many dreams as I had, so, just cast a few here, cast a few there. And the both of you are kind of making this contractual agreement. Okay, well, if that's what you need to be happy, and this is what I need to be happy, well, I'm willing to, put a few chips on the table, and we'll negotiate, and, as long as you do your thing and abide by what I need, then I'll do my thing, and of course, at any point in the future, if you decide not to come through on your end, then I am free and clear of performing on my end, and we will have to start this over from scratch. Oh, it just got quiet. Sorry. But it happens. The other thing that happens, option B, is people start to look for a way out. And you've seen that. Some of you have experienced that. Been part of it. Maybe you wouldn't admit to it, but you thought it. You start to think things like, well, I thought they were my dream person. Just, maybe I was wrong. I tried real hard and they're just not turning out. So maybe I got it wrong. Or, obviously they were meant to be. They're so close to being able to be the dream person, but they're just not willing. They just don't want it enough. They're just not hungry. Right? And so he's, well, they should be, but it's just not my fault, that they don't want it bad enough. So still the outcome's the same. I need to look for a way out. And oftentimes, even people who start at A, which is compromise, end up with B, again, looking for a way out. Because why? Well, because, quite frankly, it's just not that much fun to have someone trying to constantly change you into somebody else. And you start to resent it after a while, don't you? Oh, you better be quiet. Don't say anything. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have tempted you with saying something. Some of you are like, preach it! Preach it! I'm tired of feeling like I got to be somebody else all the time. I'm tired. It's real. It happens. It happens. In every relationship I've ever seen, it happens sometime. So people wonder, they really wondered in the 80s, is there anything better than this? People that have compromised and compromised and compromised and just kind of worn themselves out compromising, people that have started to look for a way out, they start to ask, could there be something better than this? Could there be? It's like every 80s song is about, could there be something better? Could it be true? Dream weaver. I believe you can get me through the night. I'll spare you the singing. And what I'm here to tell you is, this is very important. If you haven't taken me seriously yet, you should. You should. Because God's playbook, God's relationship playbook, actually has a play in it that goes differently than what everybody else does. And I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share with you just one set of verses. We're going to go to Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. Some of you know this by heart. It's your favorite verse in the whole world. But you didn't know it was about relationships. And at the front, you're like, I don't know how this is about relationships, Pastor James. I don't really quite see it. Could you explain it? Be happy to. Be happy to. So I'm going to take you to Philippians 4, verse 6. And the writer says, get this, he says, be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for what? No thing. No thing. Nothing. What am I supposed to be anxious about? Nothing. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication. I'll explain that in a minute. If you don't supplicate, I'll explain it to you. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. That's Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing. What's he saying? He's saying if you have things in your life that really mean something to you, like really mean something to you, if it's enough for you to think about and bite your nails about a little bit, that's a thing. That's an everything, okay? If that's you and you've got dreams and things that you're concerned about how they're going to come out, you take those things to God in prayer and supplication. You probably know what prayer is. You're just talking to God, right? But what's a supplication? Supplication is just an earnest, humble conversation. Take these things, all of the things. Not even one thing should be left out. If it causes you anxiety, bring it on in. Put it on the top of the pile, take it to prayer, and earnestly have a real conversation with the Lord about those things. Well, I don't feel like, my wife desires me anymore. I don't feel like my husband cares about anything I say. Nothing I say seems to matter. Is this always going to be this way? How are my kids going to turn out if he keeps acting this way? How is this going to ever come to pass? How are we ever going to get out of debt? We're always behind. We're always paycheck to paycheck, and they never seem to learn, and they're always irresponsible, and they never get me, and on and on and on it goes. Just a smattering of all of the things that cause people anxiety, especially in relationships. Just take those things, the great big pile that they are, when they come up, that's your cue. As soon as they come up, take them in prayer and have an earnest, humble conversation with the God who made you. And he adds this, with thanksgiving. With thanksgiving. You start with the thanksgiving. This isn't like a belly aching contest. You know, it's not like when you go to go to somebody at a bar or something and be like, I can't believe, my wife treats me this way, and this is just ridiculous, and, I can't believe that this happened, and the nerve of these people, and that guy at work, man, he's awful. Okay, and then you just walk out the bar. Okay, this isn't that. This is coming to the Creator God and beginning with thanks and reminding yourself who you're talking to. This isn't a friend at the bar. This is somebody who actually has power to change your situation for the good. This is somebody who actually cares for you more than anybody else you know, more than every other letdown you've ever had. You go with thanksgiving. Somebody asked me once, what good does that do, thanksgiving? I'll tell you what it does. It rights the ship. It rights the ship. It puts your head in the right place as best you can before you talk to God. And I understand that not everybody in the world has a long list of things that they can recall where they said, oh, God was so good to me here, and God was so good to me there. I understand that. You go with whatever you can think of. Every good thing that you can pull out of the air and remind yourself, well, this is good. And I do get to exist. I mean, that's something. I couldn't birth myself. There's another check. You can go on. You can come up with something. You can thank God for your good parents, or one of the good parents, or a good person, or somebody, anything. You can thank Him for something. You can. You can. It might take a little work at first, because of where you are in your heart. You start there and you bring in that pile. You bring in the pile. And he says, let your requests be made known to God. What do you want Him to do? What are you concerned about? What keeps you up at night? Are you afraid you'll never be happy? Are you afraid you'll never get to a place where it isn't just terrible every day? Are you afraid you'll always be sick? Are you afraid of blank? Take them to Him. And I understand why you might think, I don't get how this is about relationships. I don't get this at all. This doesn't mention anybody, doesn't mention Valentine's Day, doesn't mention any of that stuff. Well, I got good news for you. There's a connection. Because when you begin to take the weight of the fulfillment of your dreams, the fulfillment of your purpose, the fulfillment of your happiness, of you ever being at peace inside, really, when you take that and you give it to God, you have given it to someone who's actually trustworthy to do something about it. And you have taken that burden off of a person who could never carry it. They don't have the power. They don't have the power. They're not good enough to make you happy. It's the message of Christianity, actually. There isn't any person that can fulfill your peace that you're looking for. People go through their entire lives hoping, I'll get peace. So finally, if I get to here, then I would have peace. Or if I met this kind of a person, then I would have peace. Or if this situation was finally resolved, I didn't have to think about this anymore, then I would be able to have peace. And of course, what do? You look around to the people around you and say, okay, who's responsible here for fixing this? Sometimes you blame people. If this wasn't this way, I would, for once, have a little peace and quiet. You vent your frustrations, or you bellyache, or you complain, or maybe you just sit quietly. You don't tell anybody. You just bottle it up, bottle it up, bottle it up, and bottle it up until boom, you go off on somebody. If you weren't this way, I would be amazing. If you guys didn't stress me out, I would be such an awesome person. I love you. Don't you get it? Stressing yourself out. It's a mistake. There isn't any person that you will ever meet that can bear the weight of making you happy. They can't do it. And we sure do try, though, don't we? We sure do try. I mean, think of all the crazy games that people will play with one another. I mean, I'm not talking about any kind of standard, kind of a jerk dirtbag kind of a person, okay? I'm not talking, I'm telling you, everybody has played these ridiculous games in relationships where you're trying to figure out what you need to do on your end to get them to do what you want. Now, sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's manipulative, it's outright threatening, if you don't shape up, I'm going to lay the hammer down on you. We have all of these different things that we want, and we're so desperate to get them. We're so desperate to get them. We're willing to do whatever it takes with this person. Just if they could just see the light a little bit, teach them a lesson sometimes. We have all these ways. Wicked games we play. Wicked games sometimes, very childlike. But we're so desperate inside, we'll play. But they can't do it. They can't. And you can't be the fulfiller of dreams either. You can love somebody like crazy, and you should. You should love a person. You're supposed to love like Christ. You're supposed to love to the point of laying your own life down for their benefit. But here's one thing you can't do. You cannot bear the weight of their happiness. Because I don't know if you've tried like some have tried, but I know somebody here has really, really tried to bring somebody to happiness, and out of love, honestly, they just want to see them happy. That's not wrong to want to see somebody happy, so you give and you give and you try and you try and you do and you do and you do and you do, but it's just not working. It's not working. I'm not saying you shouldn't love like crazy. But if you're loving like crazy and carrying the burden of believing, if I just come through somehow, finally, I will have succeeded, I will have made them happy. You're going to have a rough time. You're going to have a rough time. You're going to live your life in a loop of 80s songs. Just Foreigner all the time at your house. All the time, in the car. I just died in your arms tonight. Must have been something you said. Non-stop. Hungry eyes. I got more, but I'm not going to share. You can't do it. Can't bear that weight. It's too much. It's too much for you to look to somebody to carry that, and it's too much for somebody to look to you to carry it. You don't want to carry that, do you? Isn't it formidable? I mean, isn't that intimidating? Oh, if I don't come through today, she's not going to be happy. If I don't come through, he's going to think that I don't love him, or I don't care, or I don't care enough, or just on and on it goes. You can't carry that. You're going to go insane. Maybe you are insane. Could be real, I don't know. But listen to this. Listen to this, because there's a secret here There's a secret here. Come back to the passage. He says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Did you hear that? The peace, there's peace. There's peace. Without even getting into how God's going to fix all the stuff that you asked him to fix. Even before he's lifted a finger, he says, if you will go to this and do this thing with your Creator, something's going to happen, and it's going to be like quick. It's not going to be like you've got to wait 50 years for the thing to finally be fixed, and then you can have some peace in your life. No, it's different. This is Paul writing. He says, and the peace of God, which is a different kind of peace than the peace that you think of, isn't it? The peace of God, which is way beyond any normal person's ability to understand, is going to come in. It's going to guard your heart. It's going to guard the core of who you are and keep you healthy and keep you right inside. And your mind. It's going to begin to guard your mind. It's going to start to pay dividends. You're going to start to think righter and righter thoughts the more that you do this. And there's going to be less room for temptation to invade and less room for people to tell you weird things that don't make any sense, that really don't support your faith at all. Oh, yeah, just kick them to the curb. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, yeah, you got to teach them a lesson. But none of that stuff's going to have room to come into your head any longer if you would practice this as a discipline. When those things happen, that's your cue. When those anxieties creep in, that's your cue. You go to God with thanksgiving and pray and just be real and be earnest. Be respectful, but be earnest. That means tell him what's real. Don't hide anything. There's no point. It's God. You're so anxious about your own happiness. And if you look at happiness, not God's peace like he's talking about, but the world's version of peace. The world's version of peace is, in order to be happy, you need the problem solved the way that you think you need it solved. Then you will have happiness. So when you pray to God, I'm telling you, there's a worldly version of praying to God where you pray to God and you say, God, I really need you to fix this. And then you just you go on about your business, and you're just as grumpy and just as frustrated and just as scared, just as terrified as you ever were. You're just waiting for, to hope that maybe this will pan out. Somehow he will fix the thing, and then you'll have peace again. It's like, God, the long shot prayer. Well, I talked to everybody else. They won't fix it. I'll talk to God just in case he might do something about it. Paul says, nope, that's not my experience. My experience is God gives people peace when they take their burdens for their lives and deposit them in front of God and say, God, if anybody could do something, you could do something. And even if you don't do what I think you're going to do, I trust you with my future. I know if I come to you earnestly and humbly and thankfully, I know I can count on you listening. I know that you will deal with whatever needs to be dealt with. I know that if I'm waiting and this thing doesn't get fixed, you know what? It's building patience or something. I don't know what's going on, but I can trust you. This is where Paul says peace begins. Peace begins. You know what some people call that? Being happy. Being happy. There are people all over the world, some in this room, who have been taught their entire lives, you cannot be happy until you have what you want. Jesus doesn't teach that. He doesn't. Look it up. Read it. Read it. Here's what I want you to read. First, I want you to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then I want you to read Acts. Then I want you to read all of Paul's letters, and James is one letter there. And I want you to read the letter of Hebrews, who we don't know the author to. And I want you to read letters of Peter. And I want you to read the letters of John. I want you to just read the whole thing. I'm telling you what, the whole thing speaks the same message. You can have peace before you have what you want. You don't have to live your whole life constantly biting your nails, wondering if it's ever going to turn out okay. If you go to God, it does turn out okay. It's signed, it's set up, it's stamped. You've given it to a trustworthy person with real power. Someone who changes situations. Who doesn't resent you for asking for help. That's what I think you ought to do. That's what I think you ought to do. And here's something, whenever I talk about this, anytime we talk about marriage stuff, I like to talk about this stuff, weddings, I always talk about this stuff. The idea that you would love a person passionately, but not get hung up on whether or not they come through for you, whether or not they hold up their end of the bargain. I say, no, I always tell people, it's not a bargain. It's not a contract. It's a covenant. You tell God, I'm going to love this person till death do us part, and whatever it is that they decide to do with that, that's on you and them. But as for me, this is what I have told the Lord I will do. Barring they kill you or something, There's a couple of little things there that make that pretty impossible. But barring those things. Here's the thing, it feels like a risk. It feels like a risk to love someone that way. It feels like a risk to put your happiness on God and just love out of who He's making you. It feels like a risk because why? Because, you've got experience. You've tried to get people to become what you want them to be. And although you've not been terribly successful, you at least can predict what will happen. I mean, kind of how it works, right? If you push somebody hard enough, you may eventually get some action, right? We kind of know the game. We kind of at least, conceptualize what might happen if we push certain buttons or try certain things or go in a certain direction. It's kind of like going to McDonald's. It's really not the best thing for you, but at least you know what to expect. I'm trying to lure you away from McDonald's. I'm trying to lure you away from McDonald's. See, the thing is, we're like, oh, well, what if they don't come through? What if God doesn't change the person? You have to understand, you're leaving behind that thinking. You're exchanging that way of thinking for the peace that God offers. Which a peace, honestly, if I translated this verse, I would say, which is a peace that doesn't make any sense. God's peace surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make any sense to the average guy. You're leaving behind a peace that used to make sense for a peace that doesn't make sense because you trust who said it. And I know that is a leap. It's a leap. It's really a leap of faith to go out there and say, I'm going to give up on trying to make you into what I want you to be. I'm going to give up on trying to kind of drop the hints and say, you'd really be, I would really feel a lot better about my life if you let me get away with whatever I want to get away with. There's all these weird things. And I'm not saying that you can't have honest conversations with somebody you love about things that hurt you or things that you hope for and talk about your dreams together. I'm not saying that. You need to do that. You need to have honesty, but you need to give up putting that weight on a person. The outcome is on you, whether I'm happy or not. You might not even think that you're saying it. Sometimes you say it anyway. This is different. But it seems like a risk. I'm telling you, all I can tell you is that you'll never find out unless you take the risk. You'll never find out if it's true until you take the risk of trust. But on the flip side of that, you feel the risk. You feel the risk in a relationship. Just loving and concentrating on loving, and they'll do what they do, and I don't need to control. I don't need to make it happen. Here's another one for you didn't think of. What's the risk if you don't do this? What's the risk? I bet you can't guess it. You ready? You're going to be stuck in a loop of 80 songs your whole life. Your whole life. One foreigner song after another. Maybe some Toto in there, I don't know. I guess Land Down Under isn't really about anything, I don't know. You're going to get stuck. You're going to be stuck in a perpetual loop of relationship disappointment after relationship disappointment after relationship disappointment, just dying in your arms tonight to find out if it's ever going to get any better. When will I ever be happy? Someday when I find, this person in Jim, I'm going to find the one person who's going to put it all right again. And they're going to make me happy. I'm going to be so happy when that happens. I'll finally be at peace. No, you won't. No, you will not. Be just as miserable as you already are. Come on, you know it's true. You know it's true. You're going to be stuck in a loop of 80 songs your whole life. She's my best friend's girl. 8675309, hungry eyes, all that stuff. Well, I can't wait till I find, I met this girl, my best friend's girl. Yeah, she's my best friend's girlfriend, but she's so beautiful. She talks to me this way. My husband never talks to me this, whatever. You're always going to be looking for something a little bit better, wondering, what if I had just found the right person? You're going to live out your whole stinking relationship wondering, what if I had just found a better person, the righter person, the prettier person? You're going to be stuck. And anybody who lived through the 80s knows you don't want to be stuck there. It just gets old. You can't listen to that intensity on the radio for that long, and you cannot live in that emotional purgatory of unhappiness for 10 or 12 or 15 years. And as statistics show, people won't. After a while, they give up. You don't want that to be you. You don't want that to be you. I'll ask one more question. Because you're starting to, maybe he's got a point there. Maybe he's got a point there. I know how you are. I have the Pastor SP. I know how it goes. You're thinking, maybe he's got some points here. Maybe I'll read these verses on my own later on and see if God doesn't speak to me in some way. I hope that you do that. But you still, come on. We want relationships to be better, right? There's nothing wrong with that desire to have a marriage where you treat each other well. There's nothing wrong with having a dating relationship where you have respect for each other. You don't pressure each other and push your boundaries all the time. See what you can get away with and maybe risk being somebody's regret later on. You don't have to do it that way. But here's the thing, you want it to be good. You don't want it to be just some miserable thing where it's just like slavery and the yoke and carry. Okay, but I've got something for you, maybe a little nugget of hope. What do you think might happen if you willingly took the weight of your peace off of the person that you love? What would that be like for them? What would happen? What if you gave that to the Lord and took that responsibility off of a person, put it in the hands of a God? What would it be like for them to live? What would happen to some of the resentment? What would happen to some of the arm-twisting games? I know you've played them, don't you pretend. You know, if you took the garbage out without me having to ask you, you know, if I got home and things were a certain way and the kids weren't going crazy, I might be a little bit more apt to take the garbage out. You know, everybody's played those games. What might happen to some of that if you took that burden off and you just focus on who God is calling you to be, a lover of this person? What might happen? Maybe it'd be a little easier for you to think about if somebody did it for you. You know, I mean, how do you feel? How do you feel? Don't tell me, because that's going to be awkward. But how do you feel? You know, when somebody's kind of, oh, you ought to be a little bit more like this. You ought to be a little bit more like this. You ought to be like, I just love it. No, you don't. You don't. Imagine gifting the person that you love the most with that. Say, you know what, sweetie? That's not on you. That's not on you. I have God. I rely on God as my source of peace. I rely on God as my happiness. I rely on God to give me joy. I love you. And you bring wonderful things into my life. But I'm not going to burden you with the responsibility that you can't carry and then have me resent you for it for the rest of our lives. I'm not going to do that. I refuse. That's my message to you this morning. You love birds? Go home and put this to work. You're going to have a great Valentine's Day. Honest, it's going to be great. But just know, honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a someone in your life right now. You can put this to work with all of the people that you care about in your life right away. Right away. You can begin to stop looking to people and say, I blame them for the way things are, who I am. I blame them for how I got to be this kind of a person. You can give that up and let God carry it. And you can know peace more and more and more as you practice this, as you make it the discipline of your life. Something bothering me, I go to God. Something making me bite my nails a little bit more than I want to, go to God. If something happened, go to God. Go early, go often. And you will find a remarkable change in your life. Remarkable. But you can't just take my word for it. You have to try it yourself. That's what I'm going to leave you with this morning, because I love you. I'm going to pray this morning for all of us, and right after, as I close, we have someone up here named Tatiana we're going to pray for, so I'm going to ask my elders to come up as soon as you guys are ready, and some of our prayer team. But I'm going to pray for all this morning. I'm going to pray that you begin to get some clarity that you've never had before about the most important relationships in your life. Get a little freedom. Remember that we sang about the freedom? Freedom. That's what this is about. Father, you've given us relationships. You have given us the exciting things that happen in relationships. You've given all of that to us as a gift. It was meant to be a gift. We recognize and we thank you for that, Lord. And this morning, I pray for those of us who are in those relationships. I pray for those of us who are contemplating a relationship. I pray for those who are recovering from relationships. God, that we would leave the past in the past and we would walk forward, bringing what your words speak to our hearts into play. To begin to practice truth in action. That we would trust you enough next time to recognize, to have you help us recognize, to say, you know what, this is one of those times. You know what, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to take this to the Lord, and I'm not going to bog somebody down with fixing it or making it, but I'm going to go to you first. I pray that for each and every one of us, Lord, that we would begin to learn the freedom of peace that comes from taking our burdens to you and actually giving you them, trusting you to handle them. I want everybody in this room to know that peace. That's my desperate prayer, that everybody in this room and everybody that is watching someday, very soon, if not today, would know that peace, that relief. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Listen, that's it for this morning.